Hello viewers, welcome to Keith's Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2017 INFINITI QX80 with a 5.6 liter engine. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on the dash while the engine is running and the vehicle is losing power. This vehicle came from Woodbridge, Virginia. The owner of this vehicle is one of our subscribers here on our YouTube channel. They reached out to me via email. I sent them our shop phone number. They called us, they set up an appointment. They towed this vehicle from Woodbridge to our shop. Now, when this vehicle got here, I started the engine. I noticed that the check engine light was not on the dash. I called the customer because in the email, she told me that the check engine light was on and the vehicle was losing power. So I called her to ask her more questions about the vehicle. Then she told me that the vehicle was at the dealership. The dealer looked at the vehicle. They told them that the engine computer needed to be replaced and they were going to charge them $3,600 to replace the engine computer. The customer asked the guys at the dealer why they wanted to replace the engine computer. The guys at the dealer told the customer that they had to replace the engine computer first so they could figure out what was wrong with the vehicle. So they said, we're going to replace the ECM first. Then after we replace the ECM, then we can figure out what's wrong with the vehicle. So that didn't make sense to the customer. The owner of the vehicle said, you know what, we're just going to come pick up our vehicle. So they started doing research online. That's how they came across one of my videos and then they decided to bring it here. Now, the other thing she told me was before they brought the vehicle to us, her husband replaced the spark plugs, he cleaned the mass airflow sensor, and the vehicle was still not fixed. So there were a couple of things that were done to this vehicle. Let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. Right now the check engine light is not on. We're probably gonna have to test drive the vehicle so we can get the check engine light to come on, and then we will go from there. Now, before we go in the vehicle, I wanna thank our cameraman, Matt. Thank you for being behind the camera. So now, let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. So now I'm gonna start the engine. So as you can hear, the engine is running. So Matt, if you can show everyone the dash. So the check engine light is not on right now. This vehicle has 195,000 miles, 637. So check engine light is not on. We might have to test drive this vehicle. I have my scan tool connected to the vehicle already. I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. So let's scan the engine computer and see what we got. So let's go to scanner. Let's see if we have a pending code inside the engine computer. So this is an INFINITI. Let's click on INFINITI. Let's auto ID the vehicle. So right there, the scan tool has identified the vehicle, 2017 INFINITI QX80 with a 5.6 liter. Everything looks good. So we're gonna do a code scan. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle. So right now, we don't have a code in the engine computer, which is odd because I did talk to the customer and she told me that they had a couple codes in the engine computer. Now, since her husband replaced some components under the hood, maybe he cleared the codes. He probably has a little OBD code reader to clear the codes. So maybe they might have cleared the codes. We're gonna have to probably test drive this vehicle. Yeah, so we have 0 codes in the engine computer, 0 code in the transmission control unit. We have 1 code in the ABS control unit. The code is C1130. It says engine signal 1. What does that mean? So let's wait until the scan tool finishes scanning all the control units on the vehicle, and then we will decide what directions we're gonna go. So let's wait until the scan tool finishes the scan. All right, so the scan tool is done scanning all the control units on the vehicle. So 0 codes in the engine computer, 0 code in the transmission control unit. We have 1 code in the ABS control unit. We have 1 code in the airbag. Now, it's good to know about all these codes. I'm gonna notify the customer about these codes, but I don't think these codes are causing this vehicle to lose power. maybe this engine signal code, all these other codes over here will not cause the engine to lose power. So let's scroll down and see what else we have. We have one code in the BCM, okay, a couple of codes in the multi audio visual control unit. So this is the radio control unit. Okay, a couple tire pressure codes. So no codes on the generic side of the tool. All right, interesting. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in the engine computer. Although we don't have a code in the engine computer, I'm going to start the engine and look at some data because the customer said that the vehicle was losing power. So I'm gonna start the engine now. So I'm gonna look at the data. Let's go to main signal. I want to look at my fuel trim numbers because when the customer said that the vehicle was losing power, I thought maybe they have a fuel pressure problem. So we don't have fuel pressure here. The mass airflow sensor was cleaned, mass airflow grams per second. So at idle, mass airflow sensor grams per second, this data pid over here is 12.18 grams per second. I'm gonna rev up the engine. The engine seems to rev pretty fine. Because usually when you have a fuel delivery issue, when you rev up the engine tends to not sound like this. We don't have O2 sensor data pids here. Let's go to the next data group. How can I look at my fuel trim numbers on this Nissan? Because an Infiniti is just a Nissan. It's a glorified Nissan. I want to see our fuel trim numbers and O2 sensor data pids. Heated O2 sensor 2, heated oxygen sensor 2, bank 2. So sensor 2, sensor 1. So here are our O2 sensors. So let me customize this list. Let me deselect all these. We're just gonna look at our O2 sensors. Where are they? Right here. Heated O2 sensor. Okay, so we're gonna have 4 O2 sensors on this vehicle. We will have 2 O2 sensors on each bank. So one will be before the catalytic converter, and then the other one will be after the catalytic converter. So we should have 4 O2 sensors on this engine. So we have this first one, heated O2 sensor 2, bank 1, air fuel ratio sensor 1, bank 1, heated O2 sensor 2, bank 2, air fuel ratio sensor 1, bank 2. We're just gonna list those 4 data pids. Let's graph these and see what's happening here. So these O2 sensors seem to work fine. As you can see, they're all mirroring each other. As you can see, this one over here is mirroring this, and this one is mirroring this one. So that tells me that these sensors are working fine and our fuel delivery is most likely good. I'm saying most likely because you can still have a sensor that's not telling the truth. But as far as what I see, everything seems fine. So I'm gonna go to the generic side of the scan tool. I might have to turn off the engine for this. So let's go to OBD Direct. So this will be like just using a regular code reader, because sometimes looking at the data on the generic side of the tool can seem a lot easier. So let's go to display trouble codes. I'm sure we won't have a code yet. No codes present. Let's go to display current data. Let's look at the data here. Let's see what kind of data pids we have. I'm gonna focus on my fuel trim numbers and O2 sensor data pids. Let's customize this list. I don't want to look at all these data pids. I'm just gonna look at a couple of them. Let's look at engine speed, fuel system. Let's grab our mass airflow sensor data pid, long-term and short-term fuel trim numbers. And then let's grab our O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 2. O2 sensor, bank 2, sensor 2, O2 sensor, bank 1, sensor 1. Yeah, I like how the data is written on the generic side of the tool. It's so easy to find. And then vehicle speed. We might also have to look at vehicle speed. We might watch it as we are test driving, because we're gonna go on a test drive very soon. Let me also grab engine temperature. Maybe let's also grab our throttle body, throttle position sensor data PID also. Where is it? Right here, absolute throttle position, relative throttle position. Okay, let's grab these guys also, and then accelerator pedal. So that's it. We're gonna list these data PIDs. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm analyzing the data to see if we potentially have an issue somewhere. Okay, so right now I'm looking at this data because if we have high positive numbers on the short term while the engine is idling, that will be an indication of a leak. Okay, that will be an indication of an engine running lean if you have high positive numbers at idle. Now, if let's say, for example, if we have high positive numbers and those numbers change when you rev up the engine, that could be caused by a vacuum leak. So even if the check engine light may not be on right now, by looking at the data and seeing the values on the scan tool, we could figure out what kind of problem we have. Okay, so now let's look at the scan tool again. So right now we're idling, we are in closed loop, so that's good. Our engine temperature is 159 degrees. Short-term bank 1 is 1.6. Short-term bank 2 is 1.3%. So this engine runs good. And then long-term is 0, 0. So long-term bank 1 is 0%. Long-term bank 2 is 0%. O2 sensor bank 2 sensor 2 is 0.6. So this is the sensor after the catalytic converter. As you can see, we have a flat line over here. So that's good. Let's go to the one on bank 2. No, I'm sorry, this is bank 2, so bank 1. Yeah, you see how this one is updating a lot, so I want to see a flat line over here. Now, this flat line tells me that our catalytic converters are good. Okay, our catalytic converters are able to store oxygen. So far so good. I don't see a problem right now. So this is the sensor after the catalytic converter on bank 1, and this is the sensor after the catalytic converter on bank 2. So our short-term and long-term fuel trim numbers look good. Our mass airflow sensor at idle right now is giving us a value of 5.47 grams per second. I'm gonna rev up the engine. Check this out. Everything looks good right now. I don't see a problem so far. We're gonna go on a test drive. I'm gonna put the scan tool right here. Actually, Matt, if you can show everyone the dash. Right now, as we're sitting here, I mean, the tire light is on, and then we have this light over here, this triangle, and an exclamation point that came on the dash. So actually, before we go on a test drive, I'm gonna check the tire pressure of all the tires, and then we're gonna go on a test drive. Before we go on a test drive, I'm gonna check the tire pressure on all the tires. Our tire pressure is, the spec is 35 PSI on the front wheels and rear wheels. So right here, I'm gonna show you the gauge. Let me turn on the light. So right now, our tire pressure is 27.2 PSI, so which is lower than normal. We're gonna add pressure. So we're gonna put more air in the tire until we go up to 35 PSI. Right there. So I hope you heard the honk. Okay, so we got the correct amount of air in this tire. So let's check the back one, and then I will check the other side off camera. Let's see how much air we have in this one. Oh, we have more. This one has, let's see, this one has 38 PSI right there. This one has 37.7 PSI. So this tire has more air in it. We're gonna have to reduce the air pressure. Okay, that's good. We have to reinstall this cap. Always put the cap back. I see a lot of people forgetting these caps. This tire has a sensor. This valve stem has a sensor behind it. So if you don't put this cap back on, dirt will go into this valve stem, which is gonna potentially damage your tire pressure sensor. Okay, so now let's go in the vehicle so we can go on a test drive. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, check this out. Actually, the tire pressure light went off. The tire pressure light is now off on the dash, so that's good. I guess that's one problem we took care of. Okay, so let's take this for a spin and see what we're gonna find. Now, the customer told me they couldn't drive the vehicle, they had to tow it. Right now, I don't see a problem. I don't know if the issue with the vehicle is intermittent. If it's an intermittent problem, this is gonna be an interesting one, because I hate intermittent issues, because usually when you start doing the test, everything is fine. So I hope it's not intermittent. I hope this vehicle is gonna start acting up as we're driving. Let me get my seatbelt on. Get your seatbelt on too. So right now, there are no lights on the dash. Let's show everyone the dash one more time before we drive. As you can see, there are no lights on the dash. Everything is fine. We have our data pad here on our scan tool. Everything looks fine. So we're gonna go for a test drive. Now, I don't know what's gonna happen on this test drive. You know, we don't wanna go too far, because if we go far and if the car dies on us, we don't wanna go get stranded somewhere. Oh, this thing is vibrating. There's a vibration going on. Yeah, right there. But
did you see the?
Yeah, I heard the I saw the RPM gauge go up and down. I don't know if Matt can show that. Let me accelerate a little bit more. There is a vibration, but this vibration is coming from the drive line. This is the transmission. This is a transmission issue. It's not the engine, because it feels like when the transmission is about to upshift, that's when it vibrates. This car has a transmission problem. Yeah, you hear that? There's like a vibration going on when you when you accelerate, when you go over 55 miles an hour. Yeah, it's only when the transmission upshifts, that's when it starts to vibrate. Let me slow down here. Okay. Yeah, right there. Let me slow down again. It feels like it vibrates when it shifts from second gear to third gear. Right there. I hope the camera is picking this up. Right there. It's vibrating right now. I hope the camera picked it up. So, yeah, this is a transmission issue, guys. This vehicle needs a transmission. Now, knowing that this car has 195,000 miles. Yeah, this is not an engine issue. And the interesting thing is that they told the owner of the vehicle at the dealership that they had to replace the engine computer. This is not an engine computer problem. Because if we had an engine computer problem, or if we had an issue with the engine, the check engine light will be on right now. Oh man, it's getting worse. Do you hear that, Matt? Do you hear that? Oh my goodness.
I thought you were going over the side.
No, not at all. I'm not. I'm not. Like the rumble strip? Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, we're not hitting the rumble strip. Like, this thing is like, it's vibrating. It's not the tires, okay? It's not a vibration that will come from the tire. It's a vibration that's coming from the drive line. You know, a transmission vibration type of deal. And this is not a drive shaft issue, because the other thing that can cause this could be a worn out drive shaft support bearing. If you have a worn out drive shaft support bearing, it can cause this issue. Yeah, because when it, yeah, ooh, yeah. So when the transmission shifts, when it goes from one gear to another, there's a vibration that occurs. But there's an accumulator inside the transmission that dampens that action. So it makes the shift, the gear transition a lot smoother, so you don't feel it in the car. So, oh yeah, it's getting bad. It's getting bad. Now, no lights on the dash. Let me quickly take a quick peek at the scan tool. So everything on the scan tool looks fine. Our fuel trim numbers look okay. Because if we had an issue on the engine side, the check engine light would come on. So all our numbers on the scan tool look fine. All our data looks good. Yeah, this car is gonna need a transmission. No questions about it. So we're still driving. Besides the vibration, the vehicle drives pretty okay. You know, the transmission shudders a lot. Now, I think I know why they did the spark plug replacement, because the customer told me that her husband replaced the spark plugs. So I believe when they experienced the vibration, they thought the engine was misfiring. They replaced the spark plugs, they cleaned the mass airflow sensor, and the vehicle is still doing the same thing. This is not an engine problem, this is a transmission problem. When I was driving, Matt thought that I was driving over the rumble strips, but I wasn't. It was the car shaking. So I'm doing about 80 miles an hour right now, and no lights on the dash. Interesting. Now, the vehicle seems to drive fine at highway speed. Like, we barely feel it right now, right, Matt? Do you feel it? Not really. I don't feel the vibration right now. From experience, I can tell that this needs a transmission. I had a Sprinter van a while back that was doing the same thing. I see this a lot on Sprinters, especially after they have 180,000 miles. If you have a Sprinter van that has 180,000 miles or more, and you feel a vibration while you're driving, especially when the transmission starts to shift from third gear, it's usually between third gear and fourth gear. You'll feel this vibration coming from the center of the van. That is almost, I would say 95% of the time, it's the transmission. And that's what this car is doing. And knowing that this car has a lot of miles, almost 200,000 miles, yeah. And I don't think this transmission has already been replaced. When we get back to the shop, I'm gonna call the customer and ask her if this transmission was replaced at some point. I don't think it had been. On this car, I'm gonna recommend a remanufactured transmission, which is probably gonna be around $3,000 or $4,000. If you're gonna get an OEM level part, it's gonna be more expensive, and also all shops don't charge the same rate. The rate is gonna depend on whatever shop you're going to, so it depends. But what I usually tell people is that anything good is expensive. Like, if you want good parts, like good quality parts are expensive, and good quality labor is expensive. So if you want quality stuff, it's not gonna be cheap. And for the most part. So the repair on this one, if I could give a rough estimate, maybe $5,000-6,000, around that number. The transmission on this one is probably not going to be cheap. Now, I don't recommend used parts There are some people that prefer used parts because they can save money. You can get a used transmission with low miles and save money. But the thing is, what I don't like about used parts, I mean, I've said this multiple times here on the channel, is you don't know what you get. I mean, you can get the guys at the junkyard can tell you, hey, this transmission has 50,000 miles, and you install it, 2 months down the road, the transmission fails again. You know, then who covers it? Is it you or the junkyard? So for me as a technician and a shop owner, I also want to cover my butt. I just don't want to be having a lot of comebacks. Like, first of all, when you have a comeback, if it's a expensive repair, you're gonna have to eat that, so it's gonna come out of your pocket, because junkyards usually don't cover labor. They can cover the transmission, but you're gonna have to cover the labor yourself. Actually, speaking of transmissions, I have a story. Now that we're just driving, I'm gonna tell our viewers. I was working on a Jeep. This was a Jeep, I think it was a Jeep Compass. It had a manual transmission. You don't really see a lot of Jeeps with manual transmissions. That one had a manual transmission, and the customer came to me and said, the transmission is going out. So basically, when you were shifting gears, I think second gear was grinding. So when you put it in second gear, it would start grinding. So I diagnosed it. It was the transmission. The transmission had to be replaced. I called my transmission supplier because I wanted to install a remanufactured transmission, and the customer approved the remanufactured transmission. He said, yeah, put a new transmission, it's better, let's do it. I called all my suppliers, nobody had it. So we couldn't get a remanufactured transmission. So we had to go the used route. So I called a couple junkyards, nobody in the area had it, but there was a junkyard in New Jersey that had a transmission for that car. I called them, they say they had it, I bought it, they shipped it to us, I got the transmission, I installed it. When I went on a test drive, it drove fine. On my way back, the gears were grinding again. That transmission I installed had the same issue that the old transmission I removed out of that car had. So when I put it in second gear, it would start grinding. You would hear like a whining noise coming from the transmission. So I called the junkyard. I was like, hey, the transmission you sent me is not good. It's having the issue that the old transmission on this car has. They were like, okay, take it out. We'll send you another one. And at that point, I'm pissed because I have other cars I have to work on. I asked them, I said, so who's gonna cover the labor? Who's gonna pay for my time to take it out again and install the one you're gonna send? They were like, oh, we can find you another transmission out of Delaware, but you just have to take that one out, send it to us, and then we will send you another transmission. I was so mad, but I had to do it. So I took that one out, sent it back to them. They sent me another one. Now, they didn't charge me to send me the other transmission, but what was really frustrating was the back and forth, like taking the transmission out, putting another one. So I took that transmission out 3 times and I didn't get paid for it. So now I wanted to make the customer happy. I wanted to fix the car, but I had to take that transmission in and out 3 times. And of course, I mean, a lot of you know when you take the transmission out, you have to disconnect radiator lines, radiator hoses. You have to drain the coolant. So I had to put coolant in that engine 3 times, my labor time and everything, and I didn't get paid for that. So it was a lesson for me. If the customer insists on getting a used part, I'm gonna have them sign a waiver that says we don't warranty anything. You feel the vibration on the car? Yeah, this car is vibrating like crazy. And it's only vibrating on lower speed, like lower gear. When you go over 60 miles an hour, it doesn't vibrate as bad. But when you are between 50 and 60, that's where I feel it. Yeah, anyways, so that's what I do now. I mean, do I still install used engines? Yes, I do. I mean, it's not all our customers that have the money to buy brand new engines or remanufactured engines. But I always make it clear to them. I always tell them, if you are going to choose a used unit, there's no warranty. If it fails tomorrow or a day after you pick it up from my shop, you're gonna have to pay me again to install another one. And I would say 70% of customers would say, no, just get a remanufactured one because I don't wanna risk it. But you still get customers every once in a while that say, oh, I don't care, just put a used one in. If it doesn't work, I'll pay again. I'm like, okay, sign here. You gotta sign. I would still have customers that still choose used parts. So I would tell them, if you pick a used part, I'm not going to warranty it because I don't know how good this part is or this unit is. This unit can fail anytime, so I'm not going to warranty it. So there's no warranty. But I think eventually I'm going to get to a point where I will just stop installing used parts or used transmissions or used engines altogether. Eventually, I'm thinking about it because it's going to get to a point where I will say, you know what, no more. I think it's better because when you install a remanufactured transmission or engine, first of all, the supplier gives you 100,000 miles warranty or 3 years. If something happens to that unit, they're gonna cover the unit and the labor. And even my insurance in the shop also will cover that if you install remanufactured or OEM parts. That's something that we have to think about and determine. So now I'm curious to hear how everybody does it. So how do you do it in your shop? Let us know in the comment section. Do you guys install used transmissions and used engines at your shop? If you do you warranty them? If you warranty them, how do you do it? Do you increase the labor price? Do you increase the price of the part? How do you do it? So we are back at the shop. I am going to call the customer. Just based on how this vehicle drives and what we have experienced, I can tell that this is going to need a transmission. This is a transmission issue. We might have to check under the hood and see if there is a transmission dipstick. I want to look at the color of the transmission fluid, and then we're going to lift up the vehicle. I want to do a visual inspection under the vehicle. I want to look at the drive shaft. I want to check the bearings of the drive shaft and make sure that those bearings are not worn out. But this doesn't feel like a drive shaft bearing issue. I'm going to check that, and then we're going to wrap up this video, because right now, Matt, if you can show the dash again. Right there, as you can see, the check engine light is not on. No lights are on right now. Let's look at our scan tool. Look at the data. Everything looks good. Our fuel trim numbers look good. I don't see a problem right now. Like, the engine is good. No issues right now. And we've test driven it for a good amount of time. How long was that? Like 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Yeah, about a good 20 minutes. So if there was an issue with the engine computer or a sensor around the engine, we went on a highway. I went all the way up to 80 miles an hour. You know, we gave it some speed. So yeah, I don't think we don't have an engine problem. This is gonna be part one. This will probably be a two-part video. I'm gonna talk to the customer. We're gonna make an estimate for the transmission replacement, and then we'll go from there. So let us know in the comments how you would go about this, okay? Maybe we're gonna check the transmission fluid first before we wrap up this video. So now let's get in the shop and check that. We got the vehicle in the shop. I'm gonna open the hood. I hope there is a transmission dipstick somewhere here. Okay, now on this side, this cover has two 10mm bolts, so we can't just pop it off. I'm trying to see if there's a dipstick over here for the transmission. This one is for the engine. This is the engine dipstick. Let's see if there's one over here. Okay, hold on. Let me remove this cover. You slide it forward. Slide it forward and then it comes out. I don't see a dipstick here. No dipstick here. Okay, that's fine. Let's lift up the vehicle. I think this transmission doesn't have a dipstick. Okay, now let's take her up. So we got the vehicle up in the air. We're gonna do a quick visual inspection under the vehicle. So here's our transmission. Now, this looks like the original transmission. Oh, check this out. There's a leak over here. This rear seal is leaking. The output shaft seal is leaking. And this vehicle is rear wheel drive. Okay, it's now 4-wheel drive, so this transmission should be pretty easy to change. Rear wheel drive transmissions are not too hard to do. Okay, so here's our drive shaft. Now the drive shaft weight are there. If you see, when these weights come off, they can cause vibrations too. So we still have the weights there, so that's good. Our drive shaft is still balanced. So I'm checking the drive shaft to see if there is play on the shaft, because these U-joints can go bad and cause a vibration when the drive shaft is spinning. Okay, so our U-joints, our universal joints for the drive shaft are good. Everything back here looks good. Our drive axles look fine. Suspension looks good. I mean, this car is in great shape. No leaks around the differential. These differential cover gaskets usually leak, but as you can see, this one here is really dry, so that's good. Okay, we're just looking around to see if there's anything that's gonna catch my attention here. Drive shaft looks good, and we have the weight back here too for the drive shaft, so this never came off. That's good. Okay, so we have a leaking output shaft seal. Now, we might have to do a transmission flush to see if that's gonna bring it back to life, but I don't think so. I mean, the kind of vibration that I felt when we were driving, I don't think a transmission flush will fix this. Yeah, this transmission needs to be replaced, and this looks like the original one. I don't think this transmission has been replaced before. Everything else looks good. Matt, if you can show here, look how clean this engine is. It's like bone dry. This is awesome. There are no leaks around the engine. This is good. Well, we're done with our visual inspection. You know, everything looks pretty good. Let's lower the truck. We have lowered the truck. So now I'm gonna call the customer so I can let the customer know about what we found. I'm gonna make an estimate for the transmission replacement. After I make an estimate, I will call the customer so we can talk to the customer and see what she's gonna decide. So I will make an estimate. I will bring you guys back up while I'm talking to the customer. I'm gonna ask her first if she's comfortable being on camera, because Matt and I were talking about this over the phone, and we were wondering if it would be good to bring everybody along as I was talking to the customer. So when I call her, we're gonna be filming. I will ask her if she's comfortable being on camera, but if she's not, we're gonna have to cut that part out, okay? Then I will just tell you what she's gonna decide afterwards, okay? So I'm gonna make an estimate, and then I will call the customer. So now we're gonna talk to the customer. Hello?
That's to hit answer, not to delete.
Oh, really? You were declining my phone call. I see how you are. We were looking at your car, and you are actually on camera right now, if that's fine with you, because we're filming the whole project. But if you are not fine with it, that's fine. We can cut this out. We don't have to put this out there.
You know, it is so hilarious that you say that, because
Oh, really?
I brought it up to my husband. I said, I wonder if he's going to do that.
Yes, because I mean, when the tow truck driver dropped off the car, I started it. There was no check engine light, so that was interesting. Okay. And then I told you I was going to look at it this week because I didn't have time to look at it last week. Then I was talking to my cameraman here. We were like, you know, we should film that project, because sometimes we have a lot of projects and we don't film everything. And we decided, so hopefully from now on, we're going to be filming everything. So, and we were like, okay, we should film this one. And we started it this morning. I was talking to Matt, who's my cameraman. He was like, yeah, you should also film as you're talking to her on the phone and telling her what we're going to figure out. So I was like, okay, let's see if she's going to be okay with it. So,
yes, I am very much okay with it.
Okay, sounds good. We did look at the car this morning, The first thing we did was we scanned the engine computer to see if there were any codes in the engine computer, but we didn't find any codes. This video will come out. You'll most likely watch it when you have time. So there was no codes in the engine computer, no codes in the transmission computer. So we were like, okay, maybe they erased the codes, because I think you said your husband had a code reader, right?
Yes, but he didn't erase any codes.
Oh,
no.
he didn't erase any codes. Okay, that's interesting. But you said he replaced the spark plugs and he cleaned the mass airflow sensor.
Yes.
Okay.
And he also cleaned the throttle body and had the fuel injectors cleaned.
Okay, he also cleaned the throttle body, and yeah. And then you also said that you took the car to the dealer. They wanted to replace the engine computer, and they were going to charge you $3,600 for it. And they said they had to replace the computer first before they could figure out what's wrong with the vehicle,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So we did our diagnosis, we looked at the data, we looked at engine data and everything. We didn't find anything wrong with the engine. The
Okay.
engine, everything on the engine side is good. We looked at fuel trim numbers, we looked at our O2 sensor graphs. The O2 sensors are working fine. The engine is not starving from fuel. Fuel delivery is good. And then we took it on a test drive. We went on a test drive to see maybe the issue, because I thought maybe the issue is intermittent. Maybe it's happening sometimes and sometimes it doesn't happen. So we drove it. We drove it for about 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. We went on a highway. We went all the way up to like 80 miles an hour. One thing we noticed as soon as we got out of our parking lot was there's a vibration. There's like the huge vibration coming from under the car.
Okay.
So it's like the transmission like shudders a little bit, and then once you go up to a higher speed, that vibration disappears, and then eventually it comes back. So that vibration feels like a transmission issue. So just from experience, I have encountered so many of those issues. Now, knowing that the car has 195,000 miles, have you ever done a transmission flash in this car?
We have not.
You have not. Okay. Now, based on how it drives and the vibration that we felt, the transmission is the issue, not the engine.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So you have a transmission problem. I don't think doing a transmission flash is going to fix this. I think it's already gone. We could try a transmission flash, but I don't think this is gonna do it. So we're just gonna have to replace the transmission. But I can give you an option to do a transmission fluid change first, to see if it's gonna do it, but I'm not 100% sure that this is gonna, changing the fluid will fix it. Because the vibration is just, like I don't know if you felt it when you drove it.
Well, that's what we thought it was like. We did feel like a little, what is the word? I guess vibration, for lack of a better term. We never thought about the transmission, I guess I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was telling Matt when we were test driving, a lot of people sometimes confuse transmission issues with engine issues, especially when you have vibrations. Some people may think, oh, it's actually the engine misfiring. I'm sure that's probably why your husband replaced the spark plugs. Which is a good thing. But, maybe he thought it was misfiring, but it wasn't a misfiring. That vibration was coming from the transmission. So, So the engine is fine. There's nothing wrong with the engine. It's the transmission. And knowing that you don't recall doing your transmission flush, you probably drove it for a long time without changing the transmission fluid, which I see a lot of times. People usually think of the oil change, they think of the engine oil, but they tend to forget the transmission fluid. So the transmission oil usually doesn't get changed as much as it should. Okay. And then as you drive it for too long, the oil loses its viscosity, and then the components inside the transmission start to go bad. They start to disintegrate, and then the transmission goes bad. So I think that's what happened. You just drove it long enough to the point where it destroyed the transmission.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the transmission, that would be how much are we talking?
So I did talk to a couple suppliers because I wanted to send you an estimate first, because I wanted to have a number before I called you. But it's starting to look like this transmission is also not easy to find. I called a couple suppliers. One of my suppliers told me they don't even have it in their stock. There's another supplier who's looking for it right now. They say they are searching. They're gonna call me this afternoon to let me know how much. So I can't really tell you right now. I wanted to have the price so I can also say that on camera, but unfortunately I can't. So they're looking, and hopefully they'll find it, because hopefully they'll find it this afternoon, and then I'll send you the estimate. So you're gonna hear back from me later today, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give you an update and let you know what we found. So that's what it is. And I'll get an estimate from me later today once I find out how much the transmission is going to cost. Now, I'm going to recommend installing a remanufactured transmission in this, because a remanufactured transmission is technically a brand new transmission. So it's an old transmission that they rebuild. And these remanufactured transmissions come with 100,000 miles warranty, or 3 years. So it's good because the warranty is good, and even our shop warranty covers those parts. Now, I've had people ask for used transmissions because they're cheaper, but the thing is, when you get a used one, you don't know what you get. And I don't recommend installing used transmissions unless you really have to. But if you do, then there's no warranty. Like, even our shop warranty does not cover used parts. So I'm gonna recommend new one. I mean, the remanufactured one first. I can get you 2 estimates, but I mean, the remanufactured one would be the one to go with.
Okay. Well, I'll be completely transparent with you. Whichever is more economical for me, and just with that, but I hear what you're saying. I do appreciate you taking this on. Like I said, we were really, and it surprises me that the shop, and it was an Infinity dealer that we took it to.
Oh, really? Wow.
It wasn't like a shop like yours. It was a dealership we took it to, the Infinity Dealership that wanted to replace the ECM.
So you took it to the Infinity Dealership, and they wanted to replace the ECM. And what's interesting is that they told you they have to replace the ECM first before they could figure out what's wrong with the car, right?
Yes.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's crazy. I was telling Matt, this is why we have to be in business. This is why I have to be in business, so we can be telling people the truth and treating people right, because people think mechanics are crooks, but I don't think so. I don't know if it's incompetence or if it's just, I don't know, if people are just dishonest, because that's definitely not a computer issue. I don't know. I don't like talking bad about other people, but
I'll tell you what, I'm glad I found our new mechanic, and it doesn't matter that you're all the way in Frederick and we're in Virginia. You will be fixing all of our vehicles going forward, just so you know.
That's good.
For that very reason, we have been so unlucky in finding really good mechanics, and so now that we have happened upon this gem, we are not letting it go. So when you move, you better let us know.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you, Wendy. It was good talking to you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna take the car outside of the shop. We're just gonna park it outside, and then what I'm gonna do is, once I get the price of the transmission, I'm gonna make 2 estimates, one for the used transmission and the other one with the remanufactured one, just to give you both options. You know, the only downside about the used one is that it doesn't come with warranty. I mean, so I'll just give you both of them so you can have them, and then we can talk again later.
That sounds like a plan. Thank you, Theo.
Sounds good, Wendy. Talk to you soon.
Okay,
bye. All right, guys. So that was pretty good. I'm glad she agreed to be on camera. So right now we're gonna stop this here. We're gonna drive the vehicle outside, just like I told her, and I'm gonna make an estimate. I'm gonna wait for my suppliers to get back to me about the prices of the transmissions. I called the junkyard that told me they could find it, so they're gonna give me the price later today. And then my other supplier, the one that's going to supply the remanufactured transmission, they will also call me and let me know. Then I'll send her an estimate. Then she's going to decide. How crazy is that? Like the Infiniti dealership wanted to replace the ECM to figure out that it was a transmission issue. Like, I can bet my money on this. This needs a transmission. And if we do a transmission flash, I know some of you in the comments might say, why don't you flash the fluid first? Or actually, the other thing some of you might say would be, what about the transmission fluid? Maybe we can look at the transmission fluid. I can undo the transmission drain plug a little bit so we can look at the color of the fluid that will come out of the transmission. I think that transmission fluid is going to be really dark. Actually, let's do that just to show you more evidence, because some of you might say, well, why are you just jumping to the conclusion? I know there are a lot of experts out there. Some of you might say, maybe it's not the transmission. I'm going to show you the fluid that's going to come out of that transmission. You'll see, I can bet that it's going to be really dark, okay? Actually, let's go back under the truck. Let's look at I'm going to open the drain plug of the transmission. We're going to take a small sample of the transmission fluid that will come out of the transmission. And after that, we're going to wrap up this video. There might be a part 2. I'm sure she's going to approve whatever estimate we give her. Hopefully, we're going to get the job, and then we will install the transmission. Maybe we're going to film the transmission installation, the transmission replacement. Let's go under the truck so we can take a sample of the transmission fluid. We are back under the vehicle. We are still under the INFINITI QX80. I'm gonna undo the drain plug. We're gonna take a sample of the transmission fluid. So let me do it this way. I hope you guys can see. We're just going to take a quick sample of the fluid that will come out of this. What's the color of this fluid? Can you see? You see how dark this fluid is? Okay. Now let's take this over here. So, yeah, look. Look how dark this is. There's one thing I want to do. There's one more thing I would like to do. Here is the fluid that came out of the transmission of the INFINITI. I'm going to pour it on this shop towel. You see how dark this is? So transmission fluid should not be dark like this. Okay? And it stinks actually. It doesn't smell good. This transmission is bad. Okay. Now, I don't see metal shavings on this. Yeah, look at this. Is that metal? Yeah. Anyways, you see how dirty this is? So this transmission fluid is really dark. It shouldn't be like this, okay? So we are done. The transmission on this vehicle needs to be replaced. You saw how dirty the transmission fluid is. If we do a transmission flash on this, I don't think it's gonna bring it back to life, okay? This vehicle doesn't need an ECM, it needs a new transmission. If we put a new transmission on this vehicle is gonna be fixed. So I'm gonna leave this right over here. This will be part 1. I don't know how long this video is gonna be. It looks like this video is gonna be pretty long. So anyways, we're not gonna cut anything. We're gonna leave everything there. We're gonna show you everything, how we went about this. Hopefully we're gonna get a new transmission soon for this one, and we might have to film it. I would love to film it and show you how I'm going to replace the transmission on this vehicle. So I hope you like this video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why, so we can make better videos in the future. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. If you're a mechanic watching this, tell me, how would you go about this? How do you do things in your shop? We learn every day. I try not to consider myself as an expert. I don't think I know everything. I learn every day. So share with me how you would have gone about fixing this. And if you're not a mechanic, but you just enjoy these kind of videos, as a consumer, what did you like about this video? Do you like this type of content where we're showing you everything? So I think this is going to be the first time we are making a video like this, where we went on a test drive, we talked to the customer, you heard me talk to the customer and everything. So do you want us to keep making these type of videos? Let us know in the comments. Once again, thanks for watching. Thank you, cameraman Matt, for everything you're doing. See you guys next time.